I'll do my count. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new edition of Virtue and Vice right here on the BigVitoBrand.com. And Vito and I skipped getting color this week because I just wasn't happy with the topics. So I told Vito, hey, let's take a week off, and then I'm going to do a show with Robbie to replace that. So what is up, Robbie Vice?
Not much. Been interesting to watch some wrestling the past couple of weeks, but especially recently. I know you have a big article on the horizon, and I think he may be the feature of what we talk about, which is kind of my background that I did here today, just in anticipation for it. But I'm excited to have a good wrestling talk. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done something like this, and yeah, that's it. What's going on with you, man?
The article is up on NoDQ.com under the opinion section. Yes, It's called Randy Orton is Wrestler of the Year. And you know, as I
give you alerts. Alerts need to be going out more when you guys are posting this article.
I tweet them. But yeah, here's the thing, right? I'm not going to explain my article to everybody, right? We'll talk about the topic, but you can go read that on NoDQ.com. But I chose Randy Orton because it's not all about in-ring work. Right? I mean, who's watching? I mean, what's New Japan done this year? This is specifically during the pandemic. And the one guy that's captured my attention the most, maybe because of his feud with Edge, maybe because of his work with Christian, Ric Flair, but it's been Randy Orton, right? And it's all about the promo, the psychology, where it's going, right? That's why I think he is the best wrestler during the pandemic. What I want to know from you is, do you have a thought? Is it somebody else? Is it Drew McIntyre? He's the WWE champion. He's the one Randy Orton's going to face soon at SummerSlam. Or is it somebody over in Meltzer's yard in AEW? And I made a good case of why it wasn't certain people before I put Randy Orton over in the article. So I really won't talk about that here, but maybe you can. You agree, disagree with Randy? Somebody else? Am I missing?
I think Randy Orton's a great candidate for it. I could absolutely buy into all the arguments for that. On my hand, though, I would say during the pandemic, I think Bray Wyatt, for me at least, has been higher, just in the sense that the guy keeps reinventing himself. And Jericho said in an interview recently that he reminds him a lot of himself, where he's never the same guy twice. And I'm very interested in the next development with the Fiend. But on the flip side, Randy Orton, in we'll say the prime of his career, he is a living legend at this point. Is it safe to say that? It's weird to see now that it's not the young, ambitious Randy Orton. It's a full circle of his story where now he is the alpha. He is the legend, but he's still, for whatever reason, doing the legend killer thing. I don't know. I think it's interesting as a character, just progression and growth. I think it's really, really interesting what he's done with that. So why don't you give me some insight? Like, how do you feel about Randy Orton? What made him for you in this top spot?
Okay, so you brought up the point perfectly. He's back to the legend killer gimmick, more or less, right? I mean, basically, recently, you know, what he's done with the Big Show, Christian, Ric Flair. Now, the Ric Flair thing could be a swerve to get him the title. We don't know yet. That would be interesting. I like to be fooled in wrestling. I'd like to think, wow, you did that to the legend Ric Flair, and then 10 days from now or whenever, or later in the week, I'm looking and Randy Orton's a WWE champion and Ric Flair's sitting there strutting behind him. I don't know what's going to happen, but here's why I picked Randy. He was the legend killer in the mid-2000s or whenever that gimmick happened, okay? He's back to that now. During a pandemic, no Roman, no Brock, no Cena. I mean, who else has really picked up the ball? Strowman and Wyatt, they're kind of doing their thing against each other. I get excited when I think of somebody like Randy Orton that's been this far along in his career. You see that passion again, that motivation, just by the way he's delivering things, ringside, the way he knows where the cameras are, the work that he's doing with Flair, setting up his feud with Drew. I would like to see now at some point, and I don't know who it would be. It could be somebody else that comes up from NXT. It could be Matt Riddle. It could be Drew McIntyre, where now Randy becomes the hunted legend, not the legend killer that he was. And he can put somebody over for the next generation and give them that rub. Now, I stated in my article, Randy has never been a needle mover in the ratings, but some wrestlers don't have to be. Jericho kind of never has to be, but they work so well with the draws like the Cenas, or go back to an early, older year like the Bret Harts and the Shawn Michaels weren't the needle movers, but they worked awesome with the needle movers like Stone Cold. And Randy's one of those guys where Mr. Tito will snicker behind my back and probably say, well, your article doesn't have many facts stating why Randy is your wrestler of the pandemic, because look at the ratings are an all-time low. Well, I stated this is subjective. I'm not picking him because he's moving the needle. I said that in the article. Something about what he's doing is making me intrigued to where could he have one more run? Could he now become the guy that passes Ric Flair after a few more title wins? And it's not Cena like everybody thought. Or is this going to be an opportunity where Randy can finally be the guy that puts somebody? No, what legend has really put someone over? Yeah, Cena tried to do it with Reigns, but they've never done it enough. Like, remember when Hogan
was the last benefactor of that, really? I mean, of the young guys, because he got put over by Trips and Flair and The Rock. I mean,
The Rock, and then Hogan put over The Rock is like a torch passing, even though The Rock only had a few more years after that because of Hollywood. But we just don't get that anymore. And I'd like to think that Reigns will come back and Brock will come back and they can do business to get the next top 2 stars over, or 3 or whatever. But I don't know if Vince McMahon has it to allow them to because Vince loves those guys so much. But Randy is in a position where he could be utilized to make us care about the future generation somehow, some way. What do you think about that? And who could the rub go to? Drew is kind of older, but he's still in great shape, and he has a long time left, it looks like. So the rub could go to McIntyre. Could it be a Matt Riddle? Could it be a Keith Lee? Is Orton the guy?
I think a more serious and focused Keith Lee is money. I think Dijakovic could be money if you're talking about future talent in NXT. And then hell, even if let's say AEW contracts happen down the road, I really think that Hangman Page and Randy Orton would have a fantastic thing going because he's basically kind of a knockoff of Randy's grandpa, Hangman is. So I don't know. I think Randy Orton could absolutely be utilized for something like that because realistically, think about it. Active in WWE right now, who has more star power right now than Randy Orton? I mean, does anyone active?
Active? Full time. I was making fun of Drew McIntyre's opponents, lately, where he defended the title, like Big Show, Dolph Ziggler. But because of how they've been booked over the years. Bobby Lashley, right? Great specimen, but Rollins, somewhat credible, but not in the gimmick that he's currently in. Rollins,
no.
Drew McIntyre, they're trying to make feel like that star, but I feel he needs the rub from a Randy Orton. We'll have to see how they play this out. And this SummerSlam, they're going to have this Thunderdome, which, it's funny. It's funny how wrestling fans immediately think of WCW Thunder. I immediately think of Mad Max. Right? And so I'm intrigued by SummerSlam now because maybe they'll have this. It's either going to be really, really corny, which I'm intrigued to see and make fun of, or it's going to be really, really cool. And I want to see how a pay-per-view show plays out with this. And guess what? One of the feature, if not the feature match, is Drew and Randy.
This reminds me of when they were talking about the debut of the Elimination Chamber, and you knew it was going to be over the top and ridiculous. And you just could not wait to see what it was. And I get those vibes from this. Yeah.
So that's why, if you want more details on why I picked Randy, and again, I wasn't going to go throw ratings out there. Like I could have tried to look up his segment ratings versus the other segments on the shows he's on. And I bet you they're definitely spiked up, but it's just, I wouldn't even brag about Roman right now. Although if he was back, I think that they would be over 2 million. I really think that on Roman's bad week, he still brings a couple 100,000 more even during a pandemic, but we're never going to know unless it happens, which it probably won't. I was really just like intrigued by Orton because he's mastered psychology. There's been times where he was ringside, and I think it was Hector Garza. He grabs him and yells at him in front of the camera. Totally a veteran. It was segmented on purpose. It wasn't a shoot.
Yeah.
But they made it feel like it could have been a shoot. Just, Randy and his snickers and his jabs on social media.
Yeah, you believe him. He's one of the last believable characters.
Even though it's fake, we can suspend our disbelief with guys like Randy Orton when they perform at this level.
Yeah. He's fully bought in, man. Like, he kind of has that Brock Lesnar thing where I think they are nice people, but to the layman, to the average fan, unless you really are a smart mark, you buy that Randy Orton or Lesnar or Riddle or one of these guys could really just go off the handle and just beat the shit out of you. You know what I mean? Like, it could happen.
But
and it's believable.
You pick Bray, right? I get it. I didn't even consider Bray because of the cinematic
segments,
right? He just didn't have enough not his fault. But like I couldn't think of anybody in AEW. I mean, Cody Rhodes, it's like so forced now that he's gonna fight a random indie guy or
no, they're too busy trying to recreate the Four Horsemen.
Like Scorpio Sky, and he's gonna go over. And the fact is, it's like, all right, why should I consider Randy Orton when he lost to MJF and he's competing for a TV title and not the main title? And it's the whole package, right? Cody cuts a great promo. I don't hear him talk enough. Mm-hmm. He just wants to go out there and wrestle. Kenny Omega, we can't look what he did in Japan. Look where he's at now in AEW. Can't consider him. Moxley is close, right? Moxley is really close. But
disagree harshly. I do not see Jon Moxley as I don't buy him as a violent psychopath. I don't buy his character at all. I don't. I'm sorry.
And I gave him the pass that he was close because I do see a little needle move with him on AEW versus those few weeks that he wasn't when he had COVID or when he was being quarantined.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's a lot. I mean, we're talking 700,000 to 900,000. It's a smaller end of Roman numbers. And look, let's face it, Dean Ambrose, the Shield rub. I mean, Rollins, all of those guys are always going to get a little extra attention because of how they were brought in. Yeah. But I'll agree with you. Moxley got dismissed. He's a champ. Jericho never got his rematch. And now they're just throwing Hager at him. Luke Harper, Brian Cage. And it's like.
Luke Harper's another one, man.
What's the constant feud you have? None. I mean, MJF is just starting. That could be something great, but it's just starting. I'm choosing.
He's the brightest star in that ocean, though.
Randy, great feud with Edge. Would have been better if there wasn't the pandemic. Not his fault. Now he's starting up with the champion and Drew McIntyre to really help Drew, who has floundered, not because it's his fault, because Drew's gimmick, babyface, needs the fans, so it's hurting him. But Randy can give that some life, can extend that. That's why I chose Randy. I didn't even pick Jericho. Because Jericho is feuding with Orange Cassidy. Look, somebody on one of the comments to my article said, mad to Randy and said, it should be Orange Cassidy. I'm like, what? And I couldn't tell if they were ribbing me or serious. It looked like an AEW fan that was serious.
Man, I don't.
Say about that? What do you have to say about is Orange Cassidy a candidate?
I think Orange Cassidy could be candidate for Manager of the Year. I think he could be candidate for Comedy Act of the Year. But for Best Professional Wrestler in COVID era, no. Because while he is entertaining, I don't view him as someone I would be like, oh, that guy's gonna kick my ass. Like, okay, that guy probably has shitty weed and plays Call of Duty all day. Like, that's what I see when I look at Orange Cassidy. Like, I don't see like a badass like Randy Orton. I don't see a beast like Brock Lesnar. I just see a dude. I see a dude that probably lives in Portland and likes to chill out on the beach, and like that's it. I don't know.
Dude,
I just
didn't
don't
Jericho say he smelled like urine and batteries or something like that? I don't know what. I remember batteries, but I'm not going to consider a guy like that Wrestler of the Year. And look, the New Japan thing, that had its 3-4 year fad of best wrestling matches. Look. Nothing against Okada and Tanahashi and those guys that have the great matches over there. Kenny Omega, as much as we make fun of where he's at now, he lit New Japan on fire with making it seem like everything. Yeah. Because of Kenny Omega, Dave Meltzer increased his star rating system. But look at AEW not doing anything with him. So Randy Orton.
Story with him.
It goes to Randy Orton, in my opinion. Now, since we're talking about AEW, and we kind of mentioned this off air, all these wrestlers, according to some dirt sheets, are virtually have all reached out to AEW except Roman Reigns. First of all, I call bullshit. Like, and that's an AEW narrative dirt sheet writer that's going to always that's making AEW look like it's the place to be. Yeah. But let's be honest. Okay, if anybody's doing that, they know it's a lesser fan base. There's no fans. There's no crowd there, right? So why would you jump ship? The only reason why anybody would talk to AEW, like a Randy Orton, right? We'll use him as an example because this might have happened, unconfirmed, or at least make WWE think that, is because they want WWE to give them a bigger contract, even though they knew they were going to stay there all along. So of course they're going to talk to AEW. Right. AEW is not the place to be. If AEW was the place to be, where's Kylie Ray, right? They're supposed to be the Bailey of the Indies. She left, and we don't know exactly why she left, but she's gone. There are other people that have left, more maybe behavioral problems. AEW let them go. It's not the place to be necessarily. They got a lot of work to do. What do you have to say on this situation of, has everybody reached out to AEW? I mean, I just don't.
So not delving too much into my personal life, but I work in a very competitive industry where I am used as a counteroffer to get a better deal. So yeah, I think what's happening here is they're calling the competition and Vince is like, well, hey pal, I'll give you $2 million. And they're like, well, I want 5. And he's like, well, pal, you get 2. And he's like, well, AEW said they'd give me 5. He's like, I'll give you 10. How about 10, pal? You work 10 days a year. So I think they're just using AEW as the boogeyman because obviously Vince is shook by it a little bit. He's seeing the ratings. He's not worried financially, but I think his ego is suffering from it. So yeah,
it's like Pierre's versus good humor, right? You represent, yeah exactly. But I mean, come on. Like, all I can say is not every. And look, back in the day, wrestlers in WWE, they didn't go to WCW, other than Bret Hart. They didn't want to go to WCW because of the opportunity. They were like, oh, you're going to pay me this much?
And guarantee
it. If Vince McMahon would have paid Kevin Nash and Scott Hall more, they would have stayed as Razor and Diesel in WWF. They wanted the guaranteed money. And Bischoff was the one writing the checkbook, writing the checks. Okay? So
yeah, it wasn't his money. He didn't care at all.
Of course, when there's competition where a billionaire is backing it, and wrestlers know that you can negotiate to a money mark that might pay you money, of course they're going to talk to AEW to maybe leave, because either they're going to go and make more money there. Who gives a shit how I'm booked? I was living over here getting booked like crap, but I was making money. Or they're going to parlay that into getting a raise where they're at. And Dave Meltzer, they're not talking to AEW except Roman because you think it's this great place to be. It's because it's a business and it's their living and they're putting food on their table and they want to maximize the amount of dollars that they make, millions and millions. So when they retire early, that they have money for their family the rest of their lives. That's the game, Meltzer. Not because it's this land of great matches. But yes, Randy Orton, clearly my pandemic wrestler of the year. And this could change. We do have a lot of year left, but I really felt like I needed to get that column out. I'm going to write another one soon, Rob, a real barn burner here about the women's division in the WWE, the rise and the fall. And I know I'm going to get heat for
both sides. Yeah, man.
I mean, I'm going to use Ronda Rousey as my chess piece for that one, because all I'm saying is, and we may get another Evolution, but since Ronda's been gone, where is the next Evolution pay-per-view other than
Ronda Rousey?
And where is the women in the main event consistently?
Ronda Rousey killed women's wrestling. She killed women's wrestling.
Yeah, because unless she would have stayed.
Yeah. I mean, yes. You brought it up. It was if she wouldn't have came, I think naturally over time it would have built. But you built it to such a high peak, and then you took out a fundamental piece of that building block that got you there. I just felt that was a recipe for disaster.
The main event at that WrestleMania, right, where Becky wins, Ronda got pinned pretty cheaply, shoulder up, the way they did it.
Oh, yeah.
It's never come back for Retribution, okay? Retribution. So Ronda's gone, Becky's out, maternity leave, and Charlotte's gone. The 3 women in the main event are gone. Who have they built up? Now Sasha and Bayley are there too.
And Asuka, but they spent the last year tearing down
so much while the other 3 were at the top. How are we supposed to believe in them now that they need
exactly.
to be the pillars.
Yeah, why weren't any of them in those multi-woman matches at WrestleMania?
That's a topic for another week. That's all I wanted to say, unless you want to add anything. We are at our 20-minute mark, and let's face it, Raw is coming on soon tonight, and Randy is going to be on there, and I guess HBK this week too. Guess what? I'm interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, the only thing I want to add to that is if you enjoy Marco's stunt, if you enjoy watching his wrestling, watching his matches, you're an idiot. I don't know. I just want to end with that. I feel like I haven't harped on that in a long enough time to where I've disparaged people who encourage Marco Stunt to continue wrestling.
Now, if Marco Stunt wrestled Orange Cassidy in a division,
dude, that's fine. Marco Stunt could be a manager
of super lightweights,
yeah.
And they got some other guys that size, like a Leo Rush. I would be like, holy moly, that might not be that bad.
Right.
But you have to have big wrestlers selling for this guy. Ugh.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts on that.
Thanks, Rob, for joining, because when we take a week off of doing Getting Color, we need to have something on the Big Vito brand, and Virtue and Vice was back this week. So go ahead and take it home with your plug.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at NoDQVice. Talk about politics, talk about wrestling, talk about honestly whatever you want. We can talk about how the Cavs were robbed by not getting into the playoffs, even though they were one of the worst teams in the league. It just took games away from me to watch, and I just don't appreciate that. But Virtue, as always, it was a pleasure. And why don't you go ahead and close us out with your plugs?
You can follow me on Twitter, troll with me on Twitter at NoDQ_Virtue. Like I said, go over to NoDQ.com and check out the opinion section in Virtue's Rage. And also, we're going to post this on the BigVitoBrand.com and over on WrestlingWithWrestling.com and Andre Corbeil's page. So for Robbie Vice, I am Virtue. This has been Virtue and Vice on the BigVitoBrand.com. Thanks for watching.